Hello everyone, welcome to the P1 program. This lecture is called P106.1. In this lecture, we are going to look at one-dimensional motion, two-dimensional motion, and projectile motion. So basically, what we have done earlier is that we had a coordinate system where x was an axis and time was another axis. So we represented the variation in the position of x as a function of time, and we represented that, and we looked at problems, different problems where one dimension was varying. So that's the problem that we did. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to change it up, and we are going to introduce two dimensions. So in order to introduce two dimensions, we can see that this graph as you can see right now consist of two dimensions, y and x. So there is an internal axis of time hidden in there, which we will discuss right now. Before that, you can understand that a vector can be represented, r can be represented in terms of x and y intercepts. It can be written as x of x cap plus y of y cap. We can write it like that. Now if there is a time axis inside like this, if you have a plot like this, so that the x and y are constantly changing, right? X and y are constantly changing with time, then there is a hidden time axis. So even if it is x and y axis, the time axis represents the changes in x and y at different values of t. Okay, so if that's the case, then we can say that a vector can be written as r of t can be written as x of t x cap plus y of t y cap, right? So it will be changing like that. So x of t means only that the value of x at t equal to 2. Similarly, y of t, y1 of t or y2 of t, all that is represented just by the time scale being 1 or 2 or 3 or n or something like that. That's the change that is introduced. Now we can say that, we can clearly say that a vector r uh, being written as x times x cap plus y times y cap is a basic representation which we understood. Now what we can do is that we can just take the derivative of that. If you take the derivative of position, what you get is the, if you differentiate the position, you get this slope of that curve, and we have discussed it for long and lot of times. Now I'm going to simply say that it is just the derivative of that will be the velocity if it's a displacement, that is r. Now we can also distinguish each of those components of velocity. Like if you have a position versus time graph and we found a velocity versus time graph, right? So we can represent the components of velocity similarly in terms of x and y, right? So we can also represent the elements of x, that the time rate of change of velocity in terms of x axis and y axis. So that's what we can do here. So it will be an internal differential of each of these coordinates. So v or dy dx of dt, dx by dt will be vx, and dy by dt will be vy. So that will give you the vector, velocity vector v of t. Now what we can do is that we can take the differential or derivative again. So you are taking the derivative or differential of the position vector twice, and that's why there is an r double dot. So if you do that, you will get the differential of velocity with respect to time. So you get dv by dt, dv x by dt plus x cap in the x cap direction, and also dvy by dt in the y cap direction. So that will be a differential as well. We have done this earlier. So that will give you the acceleration in each of these coordinates, right? In x coordinate system and y coordinate system, or in the x direction and the y direction, what will be the individual accelerations, right? If you take the differential, so you are again taking the differential of this velocity curve, and you get something that is a constant or something like that. So that will be the acceleration versus time graph. So the area under the acceleration versus time graph will be the total velocity of that thing. That can be done using an integral. We have done that. We have did several problems regarding that. So the acceleration has individual changes in x and y axis, y directions. So that changes contribute to the vector, which is the acceleration vector. You can represent that as well. Now, these are the basic things that we have discussed up until now, right? Now what we are going to do is that we are going to change things and advance things in two-dimensional motion. Let's look at projectile motion. What is a projectile? So before explaining that, if you are a guy or a person standing here and you throw a ball at an at some angle or something like that, you just throw the ball up, or not straight up or straight forward, but in an angle, right? If you do that, the ball will get some velocity, right? So the velocity will be in some angle with the x-axis, or in another angle with the y-axis, right? So that will be the case. So if that's the case, then if there is no gravity on earth, then you can clearly say that the ball will go straight up to infinity. So it will go straight up, it won't stop at all, right? So if there is no gravity, if there is gravity, it is going to fall down, it is going to come back to the ground. So at the final time, the velocity will be zero when it touches the ground. So that's what's going to happen, right? Now if you look at those situations, you can see that one will go to infinity without gravity, one will take a parabolic path like that in the red line, and the other thing is actually air drag, right? There is always air in the atmosphere, and that air will cause some kind of a resistance to the motion of the ball. So the ball will be going in a slightly different path, which is not parabolic. If it is parabolic, that means it is going to have an initial angle of incidence. This angle, the initial angle, will be the same as the end angle. So these both angles will be the same if it's a perfect parabolic path on a surface that is straight. So if that's the case, then that's going to happen. It's going to take a parabolic path. If that's not the case, then it's going to take a second path, which is a resistive path with air drag. Okay, so that's so when you throw a ball from A to B, it will either take a parabolic path to B or another path to say B dash. So that's the second path where air drag is present. So it will reach a distance that is shorter than the actual parabolic distance it should take in the case of a uh, normal delivery. Now what we need to remember is that when we choose our axis, we have to be precise, right? If I say that anything that goes up is taken as positive and anything goes down is taken as negative, and anything that goes to the right as positive and anything that goes to the left as negative, if that's the case, that the assumption that I am taking for the moment, if that's the case, then the following problems are done with that in mind. Okay, we cannot switch in between problems. Now if that's the case, then the force of gravity will be downwards, right? So if the downwards direction is negative, so if the gravitational force will be the weight of that body, so it will be mg, so it will have a downwards force, so it will be minus mg. Okay, now air drag will be acting towards the left, right? If it is the ball is moving towards the right, so air drag will have its effect onto the direction left, right? So in this direction, so you can clearly see that it will have the air drag, which will be we will explain it later in the course, because at the moment it is not I haven't introduced Newton's laws, I haven't introduced any resistive motions or friction or anything like that. So we are in the basic terms. So for this time being, you can assume that you have already studied this thing in 11th standard and all that. So I assume that you have some basic information. So air drag will be that resistive force will be proportional to v square, right? So it will be proportional to v square, and the coefficient of resistive force is b here. So you can see it's a bv square, and it's in the opposite direction, in the left side, in the left direction, so it will be a minus bv square. Okay, so that's air drag, and I am assuming in this problem in here at this stage of the course I'm assuming that it is almost negligent and it is almost zero, right? It is there, but I am assuming that it is zero. So let it be like that. Now, if that's the case, you can see that the velocity will look like something like this. The velocity of the ball will uh, reduce and it will fall down to the ground level, right? And the velocity component at the initial stage can be resolved, right? The velocity component can be resolved in terms of x-axis and y-axis. Now if you do that, you can write down that v is equal to vx x cap plus vy y cap. So you can straightforward do that. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to use some little bit of trigonometry, okay, small bit of trigonometry, and we are going to say that if this is the resultant, the vector of velocity, our velocity of throwing that ball, then when it is resolved into vx and vy, we get a something like a similar this kind of situation where theta is the angle with which we are throwing the ball. So we can straightforward using trigonometry, we can say that the sine theta will be equal to the opposite side by hypotenuse, which is Vy, by hypotenuse, which is magnitude of V. Similarly, cos theta will be Vx divided by magnitude of V, right? So Vx divided by magnitude of V. So that's straightforward, and we have done that earlier. So we can say that Vy will be, when you equate that, Vy will be magnitude of V times sine theta, and Vx will be magnitude of V times cos theta. So you get that straightforward. Now what we can do is that we can write down the vector in terms of its original form as components. So V will be composed of some V cos theta in the x axis and some V sin theta in the y axis. So the components are there. Now for fun, if you reverse that, we can find out the magnitude. Okay, let just straightforward looking at this diagram, and you can see there is a 90-degree here. If you have the apply the Pythagoras theorem, so magnitude of V will be Vy square root of Vy square plus Vx square. So that's straightforward using the Pythagoras theorem itself. So when you substitute that back into this equation, you get V as clear as that. So it's a reverse checking which I have done for fun. So there is no actual reason for that. So that's the case. If that's the case, then we can also define theta. So tan theta, if you look at that plot, you can see that tan theta will be opposite by adjacent. So that will be Vy by Vx. So tan theta is Vy by Vx. So that means theta will be tan inverse Vy by Vx. So if you get at some place, if you find out Vy or Vx, you get that that values, then you can straightforward find tan theta. That's a trigonometrical property that you can use always to find out the angle of throwing. Okay, that's a added information. Anyways, now getting to the actual problem, you can see that the projectile will be influenced by gravity. So the force of gravity, as we have explained earlier, is just minus mg times v y in the y cap direction. So it will be in the y cap direction. In the downward direction, that's why there is a minus sign. Again, remember that. So F total will be Newton's second law states that any force will be can be equated as ma, right? So mass times acceleration is the unit of force. So any representation of force can be done on the basis of that. So it has the dimensions of force. That's the dimension of force. Now you can equate that. So we know the gravitational force here existing, and in the y cap direction, that means in the y cap direction, may, that's why there is an ay here. So in the y cap direction, the force which is may is equal to minus mg. So that's the only force existing in the y cap direction. We have we have neglected the negligent value of the resistive force or frictional force, air drag. So that ay is minus g here. Okay, that's why we can say that mg is equal to may is equal to minus mg. So you can say that ay is equal to minus g. Similarly, m in the x-axis. In the x-axis, you can clearly see that the ball is moving like that. there is no force in the x-axis. So in the x-axis there is no force acting. uh, there is only gravity without the resistive air drag. Only gravity is remaining, so gravity is not acting in the x-axis. So you can clearly see that there is only gravity in the y-axis, and the x-axis there is only the linear motion. There is no deceleration or resistance or acceleration or anything like that. So you can say that max equal to 0. So you can say ax equal to 0. Okay, right? There is no force, so ax is equal to 0. So that also in place. Now if you look at the y-x plot, you can see that the you can write down the equations of motion. So the xt plot, for that, before that, let's write down the equation of motion, right? So equation of motion states that we have already derived this, we have done this, all the derivations from scratch. Now I'm just rewriting this equation. So x equal to initial position plus the velocity times time plus half acceleration, the x-axis, times t square. So that will be equation 1. Okay, you might want to note it down because I'm going to be mentioning these equations as equation 1 or 2 in the later part of this lecture, so that if you want to remember, you have to note it down which equation it is. So here x0 is equal to 0 and ax equal to 0. So we have found out that. So that means we can substitute that back into this equation, and you get x will be equal to x, the first term and the last term vanishes, and we get vxt. So vx is just v cos theta, right? No. The first term and the second term vanishes, and we get x equal to vxt, right? So we can write down that so x is just vxt, and there is a slight mistake that I have written down. This is not necessary. So x equal to v cos theta times t. So this is not needed. This equation is not needed to be represented. Anyways, x equal to v cos theta times t will be the position in the the position in the x direction. So you can write down that that position, that x will be the total uh, the okay. If you look at this graph, you can straightforward see that the endpoints, these two endpoints will correspond to the total displacement in the x direction. So there is an actual displacement. If you look at this, there is an actual displacement in the x direction, right? So there is an actual displacement. This will be the x displacement. So that displacement can be represented by just using the endpoints, the difference between the endpoints, right? So the area under this curve will be the total distance. Okay, so the area under that will be the total distance, and the difference in length between the endpoints will be the displacement. Okay, so that's also in place. Now if you look at the y-axis, so now I have represented y in terms of t. So for that, I have to write down the equation of motion, the first equation of motion of position. So you can write down y0 plus v by t plus half a by t square. So that will be the equation. You can write it down as equation 3. And you can take the derivative of that if you want. You get vy minus gt, right? So ay will be minus g. So that's why here it has become minus gt. So when you take the derivative, you get differential. When you take the derivative with respect to t, you get y0 will be cancelled, and the vy t will become vy, and there is a minus gt for the derivative of half ay t square. So that's what's going to happen. So the velocity equation, which is equation number 4, remember that. So that's the velocity equation for y-axis. Now if you plot this graph, of position versus time graph, this first, this second, third equation, this graph, if you plot that, you'll find that the plot will looks like this. That means the velocity, the position is going to increase, the displacement is going to go high up to a maximum and then come down back to the ground. So that's what's going to happen, right? So in the y-axis, the displacement, if you want to remember what I said last time. So the displacement is just the endpoints. So if you look at these two endpoints, the difference in endpoints is just 0, right? So the difference in any height of these endpoints is just 0. So that means the displacement is 0, and the area under the curve will give you the total distance. So the total distance is actually there, but the displacement is 0 in the y-axis. Now again we have found out the velocity equation. Here you can clearly see that velocity ay is here, the acceleration ay is just minus g, straight forward from the equation you can do that. So the acceleration is just g. So we got all that looking at the equation itself, looking at this plotting this graph. We found all this out by writing down the equations of motion and plotting the graph, right? So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to look at this thing in another way, right? I'm going to look at this from another perspective, which is something that we have done, the area under the graph using integration. So you can see that x dot will be vx times t, right? So it's the velocity, that is differential of x with respect to time. So it will be v of x t final. So it will be the, if you have a plot like this, right, like that, that means this is v. Let's okay, let's redraw it. Okay, if you have a plot like this will be at time t, this will be at time 0, and this will be the final velocity v final, this will be the initial velocity v0. That's the case. Then this area, which will be the integral of v final, integral of this thing, which will be equal to v final minus v0, right? That will be the integral of this whole thing. So that will be equal to, so if it is a position, that will be the integral, right? If it's a position, then vf minus v0 will be the area under that curve. So if it is the velocity, then the area under that curve will be displacement, so it will be x final minus x0, right? So if it's acceleration, then the area under will be vf minus v0, remember that. Okay, so here we are considering the velocity here. So velocity, if it is the area under the acceleration curve, it will be v of x in the x-axis, the time final minus v of x0, which will be the area under the curve of a acceleration graph. So it will be 0 to t ax t times dt. So we can write down that the ax here is 0, right? We remember that in the x-axis there is no acceleration. That means v of x at t final, which will be equal to v of x at t equal to 0, right? So the velocity at the final stage will be equal to the velocity at the initial starting point, the x direction. In the x direction, there is no change in velocity. So that's a very good thing, very good factor that you can deduce from that principle of integration itself. Now if you find out in terms of y-axis, you can see that y dot will be equal to vy of t. So you can say that vy of t will be difference between vy of t final minus vy of 0. So it will be the difference, the final velocity will be the difference between the v final minus v0. v0 will be the difference, will be the velocity. v0 will be the velocity, right? So that will be the case. In that case, vy of t will be vy of t final minus vy of 0. So that will be integral 0 to t ay of t times dt, right? So that will be integral 0 to t minus g of t, because acceleration of y is equal to minus g of t. We have done that. We have done this earlier. So that we can introduce that there. So you get 0 to t integral minus g of t dt. So that velocity will be minus g of t times t. So integral 0 to t g of t dt will be equal to integral of some factor of dt will be t. So within that limit t to 0, so that will be minus g of t t. So we got that. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to rewrite that equation, and we are going to say that vy, in the y-axis the velocity is vy of t minus vy of 0. So we got that as g of t minus g of t times t. So Vy of t is just the final velocity will be initial velocity minus g of t. So that's another equation. So we got the second equation. So I've just made a mistake earlier, that's why I've corrected it there. Now you can see that this is equation 2. Okay, so this is equation 2 now. Okay, anyways, that's the case. Now what we are going to do now is just use this equation, use the equation of uh, velocity, and now we are going to find out the position. So y minus y0 will be integral vy of t dt, right? So that will be the position. So that will be integral 0 to t. Substitute this back into this equation and you get the integral of vy0 minus g of t times t dt. So when you integrate that within the limit 0 to 2, you get y minus y0 is equal to v0 t minus half gt times t square. So that means that we get back the equation of motion. So we get back the equation of motion from that. So this is a second method of doing the same thing, right? So I told you that we have to do this. I have done this in another way. So looking at the integral equation and just writing down and solving it, we can get back the equation of motion. This is just another perspective. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to bring back the equation 4. So equation 4, as you remember, is for Vy, right? So Vy in use the equation 4, and before that what is this case is that if you take the y times y versus time graph, you see that this is the plot, right? So this is the plot, and you can see that at some point the velocity is the slope of this curve is just 0, right? At this point the slope of this curve is equal to 0. So slope will be dy by dt. So it's the ratio of y by t will be the slope. For a small part it will be dy by dt. We have done this earlier. Anyways, that will be equal to 0. So that's the case. That means velocity equal to 0. The velocity in terms of y axis. So y velocity is equal to 0. So now we can say that vy is equal to 0. So vy will be equal to, if you substitute use this equation 4 and substitute that back, vy 0 is just minus g of t times t. So that will be equal to 0. So that means vy0 is just minus g of tt, right? I just replaced it to the other side. Now what we can substitute back is just, we know the what the value of vy is. Vy is just v sine theta, right? Vy0 is just v sine theta. So substitute that back here and bring this g of t downside. So you get g of t here. So time will be, so the time to reach this point will be found out as v time is equal to v sine theta by g of t. So that's called time, right? So that you found out the time. Now if you want to find out, if you want to have a numerical idea about this thing, what you can do is that we can substitute v0. We can introduce v0 is just what 20 meter per second. So that's the initial velocity. Theta be 45 degrees and g be 9.8 meter per second square. Okay, so let it be the case. So if that's the case, we can straightforward substitute that back into this equation and you get t equal to v0, which is 20 times sine 45 theta and 9.8, which is g. So you get 1.44 seconds, right? So that's what you are going to get. So that's 1.44 second. Now what we can do is that we can if you look back in the the y versus time axis, in the y axis versus time axis for the velocity or position graph, you can see this maximum at this maximum point, which is the t max. So for a parabola, the total distance traveled from this side to this side will be the same as total distance traveled to the this side to that side. So you can say that the t total will be times 2 times t max will be t total, right? So that will be t total. Okay, now so t total will be 2 times t max, so that is equal to 2 times v sine theta by g. So that means it's 2 times, we have found out t max, so that is 1.44 seconds. So 2 times 1.44 is just 2.88 seconds, right? If you want to find out the height of the top, right, you can use the equation 3. Remember that equation is here, right, straight here. So y is equal to y0 plus v0 sine theta t minus half gt square. So if you use that and we substitute that t is equal to t top equation into this equation, right, into this equation, you get y is equal to y0 plus v0 sine theta times t, which is v0 sine theta by g, minus half g times v0 sine theta by g the whole square, right? So I just substituted that back in. Now we get is y max is equal to y0 plus v0 sine square theta. So it has become sine square theta by g. I just took it out, this whole thing out in as common, and the on the inside you get half 1 minus half here, right? So 1 minus half is inside, so it will be half. So you get y max is equal to y0 plus half v square sine square theta by g. So y max, if you want to substitute, so y0, right, what is y0? So if you have a guy, okay, if you have a guy like this, standing here, then his height will be 2 meters. So that will be the y0. So initial value, starting point or initial y value, right, that will be 2 meters. And also so that is v0, y0 is equal to 2 meters, v0 is 20 meter per second. We have done that problem earlier, and g is 9.8 and theta being 45 degrees. If that's the case, then y max is just you can find, you substitute that into the equation, this equation, and you can get y max equal to 2 plus half 20 square plus 20 square times sine square 45 by 2 times g, which is 9.8. So you get 12.2 meters. So the total height is 12.2 meters. That's the height the ball is going to go up. That's the maximum height. Okay, now if you want to find out the range, the distance from the starting point to the ending point, so what will be that distance? That's called the range. So the distance is x total. Okay, that's the distance. So from equation 1, you remember that this is the equation 1, which is the displacement equation for in the x-axis. So you can see that x0 is equal to 0. You start from 0, right? You start from 0. This is x0 here. So you start from 0, and next thing is what, x0 equal to 0, and also acceleration in the x-axis is also 0. So you can say that it will be v x0 will be equal to 0 plus v cos theta times t final plus 0. So that is v cos theta times 2 t top, right? So t top times 2 will be t final. We have done that earlier. Now we can substitute that equation back in. T top was just v sine theta by gt, and so x will be equal to 2 v square cos theta sine theta by g. So that will be the range equation for range, right? So solving that and substituting that back in. If you want a realistic example, you can remember the last problem, last thing that we did. We found out that for that different case, for 20 meter per second initial velocity, we found out that total time was 2.8 meter per second, right? So with that in case, you can just substitute that back in. So it's v cos theta times t top total, so that is 20 times cos 45 times 2.88. So that's the total range, which is equal to 40 meters. So so far we have done the projectile, and we have found out what the equations regarding the range and the height. So range and height, and we have done what the time take, how much time will be taken for this thing to reach from here to here. So how much will be the time to reach the top also we have found out. So it was 40 meters for that example, and 12.2 meters height it went if you were throwing it at from 2 meters height. Okay, so that's all. I think I have covered all the aspects of projectile and two-dimensional motions basics. So I think you got a decent understanding. And if you have any suggestion regarding this mode of lecturing, so it will reduce the time substantially, and you can do more problems if I can write it down earlier and read it out. So that's why I just tried this out. If you have any suggestions, like you need a earlier version or you need some more advancements, just down in the comment box, just type down that your feedback, type down your feedback, and please subscribe, right? Thank you guys for watching.